Welcome to Useless Information, part 26/28, because I now make this series whenever I run out of ideas for the time being. If you want to watch the other 23 parts of the series, 4 of them are dead to me, you can see the playlist here and in the video's end card. Anyway though, let's get started with this episode. There are 8 knife weapons in Terraria: the throwing knife, poison knife, bone throwing knife, shadow flame knife, flying knife, chain knife, psycho knife, and, if you include it, the vampire knives. At insanely high legal wind speeds, the tops of trees and other blocks that are affected by wind will seem to disappear. This is because the sprite offset math that normally causes them to nicely wave around sends them far off screen when the numbers are this high. As the wind speed comes back to normal, you'll see them slowly animate back into place. Anglerfish glow extremely faintly. You can just barely see it. Props to being realistic, I guess. If you have auto pause enabled, opening the bestiary will advance the game by 1 frame, even though the game is supposed to be paused. Closing the bestiary will not advance the game by another frame. Technically, this allows you to easily advance individual frames and ticks in Terraria, if you ever needed to do that for some reason. The static hook is the only grappling hook with an animated sprite. On the Legacy console version, the cactus, mushroom, and pumpkin clocks are made at workbenches, instead of at the sawmill. Both the Drippler and the blood squid enemies from the Blood Moon have 4 visible eyes. In 1.4.4, certain visual effects will still animate while the game is paused. This is different than pre-1.4.4, where the timer for these effects was disabled while paused. If you are in stealth mode using the Shrumite armor, vortex armor, or psycho knife, NPCs will not try and talk to you via emotes. A dart fired from a dart trap will travel for 60 seconds before it disappears. This means a dart trap has a range, assuming the projectile stays loaded, of 2,700 tiles, or just over 1 mile. When using the trident in water, the stopwatch reads half the actual speed you're traveling. This is because the stopwatch is hard-coded to reduce the stated speed by half in water, even if the trident negates that penalty. Just like the moon, the sun appears to rotate as it travels across the sky, although due to its lack of distinct features, this is much harder to make out. You can only tell due to the different pixel alignments. This effect is much easier to see with the old 1.2 sun, since, well, that has spikes. If you zoom out farther than 100% using a modification, you can see that the game will not render most objects and tiles that far out. Thus, there is simply a border of void around the edge of your screen. It is impossible to drown in shimmer because it contains breathable air, just like the vacuum of space. The wiki page for sunglasses says that the accessory's vanity effect of changing the sun texture to the pre-1.2 sun texture is, quote, likely intentional. Despite the fact that it is very clearly and certainly intentional, why would it do that otherwise? On the mobile version, saving and exiting from a world instantly clears the respawn timer, whereas on PC, the timer persists. There's even a 4-byte integer in the save file that's supposed to store the death timer on PC, although I'm not exactly sure if it's used or not. Enemies not affected by shimmering will simply become invisible when exposed to shimmer. It takes 1 2/3 seconds, or 100 ticks, to become fully invisible. Once they exit shimmer, it will take 16 2/3 seconds, or 1000 ticks, to become fully opaque again. If there are more than 10 star cells and mini star cells alive in the world at once, star cells will only produce 1 child mini star cell upon death. This means that it is impossible to farm more than 10 star cells to be alive at once. However, the alien queen, which also break into multiple alien larvae which grow into hornets and back into mini queens, do not have this limitation. This means it is possible to form hordes upon hordes of alien queens. The wingspan of a vampire is slightly larger than that of a giant bat, showing the obvious fact that vampires are larger than bats. Shimmering can be used to bypass the jungle temple walls and get in early, being one in a line of many new features throughout the years to allow doing this. However, given how unimportant the general security of the temple is these days, considering the old platform trick does and always has worked, I doubt this will ever be patched, unlike the old bypasses. Shimmer slows the player to 3/8 of their normal walking speed, a little faster than honey at 1/4, but slower than water or lava at 1/2. In 1.4.4 and later, the Zenith swing sound effect plays at a much faster rate than previous versions, making it roughly appropriately match its fire rate. The nurse's shimmered sprite has a golden cross on her cap. Importantly, it is not red. It is possible to drown in a very, very thin layer of water using the aid of bubble blocks. As absurd as this may look, it really isn't. If I dunked my head into a thin layer of water that still covered my nose, I would still drown too. In version 1.0.6, using a hammer to remove obsidian brick walls would produce raw obsidian back. This presumably allowed infinite duplication of obsidian. The digging mole cart, Terraria's slowest minecart, is still almost double the speed of Minecraft's minecarts. Minecraft's minecarts have a max speed of 8 meters per second or 18 miles per hour, whereas digging mole cart can travel at 31 miles per hour. Even if you make the Minecraft minecart travel diagonally, since its speed limit is only each axis of travel, it is still slower, at 25 miles an hour. This is why nobody uses minecarts in Minecraft, and if you ever intend them to be a serious method of transportation, you need to turn the speed up like, at least 4 times. The rain hat fails to cover your ponytail if your hair has one. Must suck to have some of your hair be sopping wet and other parts be completely dry. Crappy hat, 0 out of 10. The number of PvP deaths and the number of PvE deaths are stored in 2 different values in the player save file. The number of coins dropped upon a softcore character's death is computed per inventory slot. That is, it doesn't compute half the value of your coins and then drops them, but instead just drops half your coins from each slot, rounded up. In nearly every circumstance, this works properly thanks to our great friend, the distributive property, but in certain cases, this may cause more coins to be dropped. For example, if you have 1 coin in every slot, you will drop all your money because 1/2 rounds up to 1, dropping 1 coin from every slot, which is all your money. For the longest time, I thought morningwoods had actual bony feet, like their branch arms, but no, their roots just kinda slither around. I guess it's hard to see since they hold their lower sets of hands close to the ground. I wonder if any of y'all thought this too. The Collector's Edition trading card for the Mega Shark states that the gun fires at a rate of 8 shots per second, but it in fact fires at 8.57 shots per second. For such a marketing copy, you'd think they'd round it up. Come on, you can do better, Mega Shark manufacturer. In 1.4.0.3, owls were nerfed to hoot less, presumably to make them less annoying. It appears that the Extractinator uses a screw to convert rotational motion to reciprocating motion. Meanwhile, the Chlorophyte Extractinator seems to be powered by a set of 3 reciprocating pistons, which spin the central depositor. And lastly, brown moss is not brown. It is fairly green, or in a way quite yellow, but it is absolutely not brown. It is nothing like this, or this, or this. It is not brown, it just isn't. Hello, thank you for watching this episode of Terrasteel Runs Out of Ideas. Here's the playlist I promised you at the beginning if you want to put that on while working or something. I still remember that guy who said my voice was soothing like 3 years ago. Thank you for that, by the way. Regardless though, best of luck and good day and goodbye. Subscribe if you enjoyed, join if you really did, and see you next fortnight.